Do you like to see trains crossing beautifully executed models of bridges while ringing the bell and blowing the horn? How about construction details on ore facilities, ore mines, and old-time Colorado railroading? Or do you just like steam engines and passenger trains? Or construction details like this spline roadbed? Or is your thing just scenery? Look at these aspen trees, the water tank, and wait for it, a trestle. Hi, this is Burr Stewart, and today I'm going to take you on a quick tour of Dave Adams' well-known O-scale 3-foot gauge model railroad in the Bay Area, modeling the Denver and Rio Grande Western in southern Colorado, USA. In the 1930s, look at those engines in the engine house. Cool? Bang! And you saw this previously, but we'll go through everything I was able to see on a visit there. It's not everything, but it's certainly a well-executed, beautiful, inspiring layout, and I hope you enjoy my little informal amateur tour of it. Those are the tracks coming out of the mine, see? Actually looks like they have a couple entrances maybe. Maybe not, just that one entrance. So we're starting our tour around the layout. It's a double-deck layout, at least, with staging even below. And this is one of those overhead wire tramways that they built sometimes, and you can see he went up to the ceiling with this at the Rainbow Mine. Reminds me of my own Rainbow Bridge. Great minds think alike, right? So the tramway would bring little cars full of ore down to be loaded in the rail cars you see there, and they'd be taken in. I look just at the hand car there. Dave is really into operations, so along the edge of the layout you'll see various accessories for that. Now here's a nice cattle stock pen, and you see he's got the car card pockets underneath. What a clever idea. Hide the car card pockets with some scenery. And of course it looks like he can park 2 stock cars there. Cool. And there's you'll recognize that ore bin as one that the Grant line made a kit for in HO scale. This is an O scale model, as I mentioned, with a 3-foot gauge track, a nice retaining wall there. Boy, there's just one thing after another on this layout. It's a spectacular modeling achievement. I went around the room before we started this formal operating session that I attended, just so that you could get an idea of the scope of it. There's some more, see the OS instructions. And there's a Y at the end of a branch line where they use that removable stock chute, which I showed in a previous video, and we'll have a little bit more on that here today. Nice trestle there. It's probably modeled after one of the real trestles on the RGS, the Rio Grande Southern, but I can't tell you which one. And see, there's the water tank we saw in the beginning with the trestle. Down in the lower level, there's a large yard, sort of an imitation of Chama, and you can see all the paperwork there for the car cards and building and breaking down the trains. And see the telegraph machinery there on the left. Seth Newman put together some equipment for him, so when you call the dispatcher, you don't hear a buzzer, you hear the sounds of telegraph, dits and dashes, dits and das, I should say. Look inside this engine house. Nice idea to put a plexiglass roof on it. You're going to go to all this trouble to install the working details inside the roundhouse.
Right, yeah, exactly. A little bit of a
Isn't that a nice shot? All those engines waiting for action. Now, a little later in the video, we'll see some of the action and some of those engines will be out doing their job. See, that station there looks a little like the Chama station. It's probably intended to be a close model of it. And there's that portable stock loading chute that I was so excited about in an earlier video. Nice turntable, of course. And you can tell there's an elevated track there for dumping the coal to get into the coal loader. See, that's also the famous coaling dock at Chama. This whole scene is probably modeled as closely as he had space for to make it look like Chama. With that warehouse in the back. There's the, on the left, the dump for the ash pit. And there's a nice track plan diagram with the switch controls. The oil loading facility, the transfer facility. I have a version of that on my layout, which you've probably seen in other videos, but this is, of course, a much better model. And there's a nice rail and tie car there, always a crowd pleaser. And there's the double spouted water tank in Chama. It could provide water to engines on both tracks simultaneously. Pretty cool model of Chama there. Very, very nice. Yeah, there's the work train I was mentioning. Yeah, the wheel car and the flanger. That's a steam shovel. Always good to have a railroad grade crossing with a highway so you can have an excuse to blow your whistle. This is called the Grant Line Junction. Undoubtedly a tip of the hat to Cliff Grant, who did so much for us narrow gauge modelers. And look how he put a rolling desk into the side of the layout so you could look at the train register and sign it when you went through this junction. When you're operating timetable and train order, you really need to sign in when you go through registers so that other people can find out if you've been through there or not yet. I think now we're going to go around the layout and look at the upper level, or at least just get an overall view of one of the aisles here. It's hard to resist putting storage up there. Well, now we're getting a look at a train getting ready to come in, I believe, to the yard. No, that's a train coming from the staging, ready to go across this beautiful bridge. Look at that, clear water, beautiful bridge, telephone poles, the phone for talking to the dispatcher. Sheep across the road. Remember when I had a bunch of sheep? Mine are white, but these look more realistic. I guess I'll have to dust off my white sheep with a little bit of some sort of a wash. I don't even know what that was, just a quick view of a mine. Now here's our first real operation, and we noticed that he has that red flagman up there, and of course in the distance by the portal you saw the train that's waiting. See the red flag there? That's another Seth Newman product, a little LED. You've seen those on my layout as well. So what's going on is the caboose that we saw in the tunnel portal is held up. He can't go forward. So he put the red flag out behind him to block this train from coming further and crashing into him. and is going to have to stop when he sees the flagman, that little LED red thing that we saw. Of course, first he needs to take on water. So while he's taking on water, you can look down the track and see that flagman saying, "Don't go any further just yet." While this was going on, I was back in Chama, bang, making up a train with this unusual flatcar load. And you can see a few minutes later, after all the congestion had cleared out by this water tank, I was pulling this train up with this flatcar load to the same water tank, preparing to take on water. Now here I'm going to show you how it's done here on Dave Adams On3 layout. You turn on that switch, it lowers the spout, and then we turn on the water sound. Hear that? How realistic can you get? The only thing we could have done is to open the hatch on the tender, which is closed permanently, so that would be kind of good if you could open the hatch and actually take on water, but that's too much. So now I've got the sound turned off and the spout going up. Isn't that cool? I mean, seriously, a working water tank, almost working. Now this flat car load, what it is it's a portable stock loading chute, so that when they get these cars up to where the stock is, the cattle, they can pull that chute off by hand, set it up, and they don't have to have a permanent fixed stock loading chute. It's really clever. I know it's been written up in magazines in the past, but I just never paid any attention to it. These are some beautiful narrow gauge cars. I'm kind of glossing over that. And that trestle, wonderful trestle. I'm not familiar with Cresco, which is the name of this water tank, but I bet you anything that Dave modeled this trestle after a real trestle. Just a good guess, right? So a little later, up at the top of the layout, on the upper deck, if you will, ooh, look at that drainage ditch there. Wonderful. Up at the top of the layout, there was a passenger train coming through, and I happened to notice it, so I took this great picture for you. You get a little idea of the track plan there. There was actually 3 tracks you could park a train at for meets of various kinds. Now what was happening here is not 1 but 2 stock extras were waiting for this passenger train before they could come out and use the main line. So one of these trains, the close one, was going to pull forward after the passenger train went by, and the other one, which I had been running, was then going to back out onto the main and go forward. So now let's take a look at this portable stock chute and how it was set up. You can see what they did when they couldn't build a permanent stock pen was to make a portable one and just load it on the flat car and take it with them. So whenever they got to the farmer that needed it, they take it off the flat car by hand, set up the stock chute, and get those stock cars loaded. Pretty ingenious, huh? I just hadn't heard of it before. And space between tracks is always at a premium, especially in the larger scales. So a portable stock chute is really the way to go in some situations. And as you see in this photograph on Dave's layout, right next to the Y, he had a very limited amount of room between the front fascia and the main line to put a stock pen. So this portable solution worked great. Well, meanwhile, a different train, a stock extra, had come all around the layout and was going across that same beautiful bridge that I showed you a minute ago. I just had to take a picture of this. I mean, how could I not?
I don't know if the switcher is lined right for you. I lined it. Oh, okay.
As I recall, I was operating this stock extra, which made it a little difficult to both film and run the train at the same time. So I pulled up to the water tank and stopped because I needed to flip that switch. Did you hear that motor in the background? But then I thought I should really take on water too, so I pulled forward. And we'll see if I actually accomplished it or whether I just got disgusted and drove off. We'll see. There's a lot of suspense in these videos, isn't there? Okay, stop. Oh, good enough. All right. Now, no, it wasn't good enough. I was being a perfectionist. Now, if I push the water button, I gave up. I couldn't do both things at once. You just have to believe me. So this is the detail shot of the inside of one of those tramway, well, or the only one, I guess, of his tramway stations with a bunker. For the ore, and see the ore flows into the gondola car to be hauled away. And of course, some lucky train got the job of pulling that. So I thought it'd be interesting to see how he built this, and you can see it's all wood girder construction with very nicely done spline roadbed. See, those long thin strips are called splines, and you can see the cardboard webbing with the plaster cloth is what he used for scenery, with some blue foam as well. So that was a picture of the dispatcher's desk, and I wanted you just to see the scope of this workbench. Dave's been modeling for many, many years and has constructed a lot of these cars and locomotives you saw from kits, and this is his workbench. I'll let you slow down the video and study it if you want to get details. So now let's go back to these mine scenes. This would be, I guess, a mill that would be processing the ore. And as you know, it was a complex thing to make silver and gold out of these mountains. First, you had to get the ore out of the mountain, which is what was happening here. Then you had to process it so that it was more concentrated. And then you take the concentrated ore to a smelter where it would really be turned into gold and silver. So it's really, I guess you could say, a three-step process. Now, out in the mountains like this, you also needed to get rid of what are called tailings. And you can see here there are two kinds of tailings. There are tailings directly from the mine, which is just rock that didn't qualify as ore. And then on the left there, you see the tailings from the concentrator building. It's kind of interesting. I haven't noticed that done in a model, but I'm very impressed with this. Well, this is the town that had the Y at the end of it, where I did a little operating here with that movable chute. And I watched a couple of other trains from there. I think I'll have more on this in a minute. This is, I think, the same train. I think I went around and watched this train, this passenger train, come into the station and then depart. Very, very nice. Very nice. Now what's happening here is that it was late enough in the operating session that I realized that I hadn't taken enough video, so I better get to work on that. And I think I was done with my train, so I just watched this other train. See, that was a grade crossing we just heard. An old-fashioned type of crossing sign. Didn't even have the X. It's really fun to see historically accurate details like that. And there's a dirt road going through the mountains, a 1930s style truck on it. You'll probably recognize this scene from earlier in the video. Now we're at what I call the Grant Line ore bin. It goes without saying that a lot of this is hand-laid track and the whole bit. Look at the detail on that switch stand. It probably works too. When you flip the switch, it rotates the flags on top. Well, with that, we come to the end of the footage that I was able to take while I was there, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you like narrow gauge railroading, be sure to go to the section of my channel called Narrow Gauge, and you'll see a lot of other good examples of narrow gauge model railroads, both on my layout and several others that I visited. But I really was inspired by Dave's work here. And if you're interested in narrow gauge model railroading, Dave Adams is one of the ringleaders of a group called National Narrow Gauge, NNG, and they have a monthly Zoom meeting, which is quite worth watching. And they've recorded and posted on YouTube many of the presentations that they've made there. And the best way to find it is to search YouTube for narrow gauge off the beaten track. And it should pop right up, and you can see a huge number of wonderful narrow gauge layout tours, vendor presentations, and clinics or workshops describing how to do a variety of modeling skills. By the way, if you're interested in this Roundhouse, Dave just did an amazing article in the Narrow Gauge and Shortline Gazette in the November-December issue, which has a lot of detail on how he researched and scratch-built this Roundhouse. So with that, this is Burr Stewart wishing you much fun with trains.